The airport terminal buzzed with the usual morning rush as passengers lined up to board. A sharp voice suddenly cut through the noise. A white woman in designer clothes stood at the gate, arms crossed, arguing with the airline staff. "I'm not getting on that plane if that's the pilot," she snapped, pointing toward the cockpit entrance. Confused glances turned toward the direction she was looking. A poised black woman in uniform, wearing captain's stripes, walked confidently toward the aircraft. The woman's voice grew louder. "Is this some kind of joke? I paid for a professional pilot, not some diversity hire." Gasps echoed through the waiting area. A few passengers pulled out their phones and started recording. The airline employee tried to calm her down, insisting that the pilot was highly trained and fully qualified. But Karen wasn't backing down. "She can't be more than 30, and a woman. No way. This is a safety issue." The pilot, hearing the commotion, stopped, turned, and looked directly at Karen. Her expression stayed calm, composed. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The quiet confidence in her stance said everything. Karen scoffed and muttered under her breath, "I'm not putting my life in her hands." Passengers around her shifted uncomfortably. A man nearby whispered to his wife, "She's the best in the fleet, flew through a storm last month like a pro." Karen rolled her eyes and glared at the gate agent. "Either get me another pilot or refund my ticket." The gate agent, clearly fed up, politely asked her to step aside. Karen stood firm, unaware that her tantrum was about to backfire in a way no one expected. The plane soared into the sky, smooth and steady, but tension lingered in the cabin. Karen sat rigid in her aisle seat, arms folded tightly, lips pursed in visible disapproval. She glanced around, catching eyes with other passengers before leaning toward the man beside her. "I can't believe they let her fly this thing," she whispered, loud enough for others to hear. "I just hope she knows what she's doing." The man ignored her, looking away. Karen rolled her eyes and looked out the window, then muttered, "These airlines will hire anyone these days just to look inclusive." A few rows ahead, a young woman who had overheard turned around, clearly uncomfortable but said nothing. The plane continued its ascent, but the mood in Karen's section grew tense. She kept going, louder now. "I've flown for years, and I've never seen someone like that in the cockpit. This is beyond irresponsible." A mother nearby pulled her child closer. Passengers shifted in their seats, some glancing toward the cockpit door, as if her words were planting seeds of doubt. Then a small bump shook the aircraft. Karen tensed. The lights flickered momentarily. A quiet ding echoed as the seatbelt signs remained lit. Karen's face paled. "I knew it," she said almost triumphantly. "She doesn't have it under control." A voice crackled through the speaker, calm and professional. It was the pilot. She reassured everyone that a patch of turbulence was expected and they would adjust altitude. Karen scoffed again. "Nice speech, but I've seen how these things end." She clutched her armrest tightly, unaware that her doubts were about to be tested in a way no one could predict. The plane suddenly lurched to the left, jarring everyone in their seats. Gasps rippled through the cabin as the lights dimmed for a brief second before flickering back on. A loud, unnatural noise echoed from beneath the aircraft, metal grinding against metal. Karen screamed and clutched the seat in front of her. Oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments with a mechanical hiss. Panic erupted. Passengers scrambled to secure their masks, some crying, others praying. The flight attendants rushed down the aisles, voices calm but strained, urging everyone to stay seated and breathe normally. Karen yanked her mask down with trembling hands, her earlier arrogance replaced by sheer terror. "I knew this would happen. I said it. She's going to kill us all," she shouted, eyes wide with fear. Across the aisle, a young boy clung to his father, tears streaming down his face. The intercom buzzed, followed by the co-pilot's voice, tense but controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a mechanical issue. The captain is working to stabilize the aircraft. Please remain calm." Karen shook her head violently. Mechanical issue. This is a death trap. That woman is going to crash this plane. Her voice cracked, now laced with hysteria. People began snapping at her to shut up, their patience gone. "Let the pilot do her job," a woman near the back yelled. The aircraft shook again and Karen screamed, burying her face in her hands. The pilot's voice then came on, clear, confident, unwavering. "This is your captain. We're initiating emergency procedures and diverting to the nearest airport. I've got control. Stay with me." Her tone carried no fear, only focus. Slowly, the plane began to level, but the fear inside didn't ease. Everyone knew they weren't out of danger yet. Karen sat frozen, the color drained from her face, finally silent. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's hands moved swiftly over the controls, her eyes locked on the blinking instruments. Warnings flashed in red and amber across the screen. Hydraulic pressure failing, left engine unstable, landing gear status unknown. Her voice remained steady as she coordinated with the co-pilot. "We're rerouting to the nearest strip. Start emergency protocol. I'll handle the descent manually." Outside, thick grey clouds churned and lightning streaked in the distance. The aircraft was surrounded by turbulence, shaking violently as it dropped in altitude. In the cabin, passengers gripped their seats, bracing for every jolt. Some prayed softly, others cried quietly. Karen sat stiffly, pale and wide-eyed, gripping her seatbelt like a lifeline. The calm pilot's voice returned over the intercom. "We've identified the issue. I'm taking us through a manual descent. I need everyone to stay seated and trust me." Her tone was reassuring, but the stakes were clear. Wind roared against the fuselage as the plane descended into thicker cloud cover. Visibility was near zero. The pilot squinted at the radar, identifying a safe corridor. The co-pilot read coordinates while she corrected course. Her hands didn't shake, her focus didn't waver. In the back, a small child began to cry louder. A flight attendant knelt beside the mother, whispering comfort. The passengers were silent now, hanging on every noise, every shift of the aircraft. Then came a new message from air traffic control. "Captain, landing gear status still negative. Emergency crews are on standby." The pilot acknowledged, with a quick nod. She looked down at the photo tucked by her controls, her family, her graduation from flight school. She had fought too hard to get here. This wasn't the moment to break. With a deep breath, she adjusted altitude once more, scanning for a safe approach angle. The runway was only minutes away, but the hardest part was still to come. The runway came into view through the thick cloud cover, barely visible beneath the stormy sky. Rain pelted the windshield, streaking across the glass as the pilot guided the aircraft lower, fighting every gust of wind that pushed against the plane's frame. Alarms still blinked red across the cockpit panel. The landing gear indicator remained blank. The co-pilot gave a grim nod. Still no gear confirmation. The pilot didn't flinch. "We land it anyway," she said firmly. Below, emergency vehicles lined the runway, lights flashing in preparation. In the cabin, silence had fallen. Even Karen had gone completely quiet, her earlier outrage swallowed by raw fear. Her eyes stayed fixed on the seat in front of her, knuckles white as she clenched it. The pilot's voice returned, calm and composed. "We are making an emergency landing. Please brace for impact. Heads down. Stay secure." Passengers leaned forward, some whispering prayers, others gripping their seats as if trying to hold on to life itself. The engines roared louder as the pilot brought the plane into final descent. Wind pushed hard against the fuselage, but her hands held steady on the controls. The plane approached the runway fast, still no confirmation of the landing gear. The tires might not be down. There might be no wheels at all. Every second stretched like eternity. Then The impact. The aircraft slammed down hard, a jolt that sent a wave of screams through the cabin. Sparks flew beneath the plane as metal scraped runway. A deafening roar filled the cabin. But the pilot held her line, keeping the aircraft centered, steady, fighting the drag. Emergency brakes engaged. Smoke billowed from below. The plane slowed, screeched, then finally, after a long, terrifying moment, came to a halt. For a beat, there was silence. Then a cry. Then cheers. Applause erupted as passengers realized they were alive. The pilot, eyes wet with relief, exhaled slowly. Behind the cockpit door, 200 souls owed their lives to her. The cabin doors opened slowly, and the smell of burnt rubber and rain swept in. Emergency responders helped passengers down the stairs one by one. People clutched each other, some crying, some kissing the ground. The pilot remained in the cockpit for a moment longer, finishing her checks, her hands finally trembling now that the danger had passed. As she stepped out, soaked from the storm but standing tall, passengers turned to her. A wave of silence fell over the group, then someone began clapping. Another joined. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding, many with tears in their eyes. The pilot nodded humbly, trying to contain her emotions. Karen stood off to the side, her face pale, eyes fixed on the woman she had insulted hours earlier. Her arrogance had dissolved, replaced by silent shame. Reporters rushed toward the pilot, cameras flashing, microphones shoved forward. A news anchor called out, "Captain, how did you stay calm through all of that?" The pilot replied with a composed smile, "Training, teamwork, and belief in myself." One journalist asked if she'd heard the complaints about her before takeoff. The pilot paused, then said, "I did, but I've faced that kind of doubt my whole life. I didn't become a pilot to prove anyone wrong. I became one to prove myself right." Karen looked down, unable to meet her eyes. The airline issued a statement within the hour, praising the pilot's courage and skill, announcing she would be formally honored at a national ceremony. Social media exploded with the story. Videos of Karen's outburst at the gate and the pilot's heroic landing spread rapidly. People praised the captain as a symbol of grace under pressure. Karen became a symbol of ignorant bias, publicly criticized, and eventually banned by the airline for her behavior. The pilot, meanwhile, stood before the cameras days later, wearing her uniform proudly, her voice strong as she addressed young girls watching. "You can be anything. Don't let anyone's doubt define you." The crowd rose to their feet, thunderous applause echoing as the screen faded to black.